So it's 1997,
Okay.
and I'm living in a Section 8 housing apartment with my first wife. Well, she was my girlfriend then, Julie, and her son.
Not just any Section 8, right? Isn't it? Aren't
the
we
sa- yeah,
the same one?
The same Section 8 housing building that not
Where
only the projects but the building that we lived in
where we
when
discovered the Beastie Boys.
Michael Jackson.
A lot of stories there. That's not what we're talking about,
Right.
though, right? Okay.
Uh,
Just wanted to make sure I knew what you were saying.
right. So same building we lived in when our parents split. I'm living there with Julie and her son, and I'm getting tattooed a little bit, not all the time, but I'm getting tattooed kind of regularly by this guy Troy. And he calls me up one day and he says he's going to quit tattooing and he's going to start manufacturing body jewelry for a living. So he's been doing a little bit of it while he's still tattooing. He's going to quit tattooing, start it in his garage, and then expand. Actually, at this point, he had already been doing it in his garage for, say, 8 months. And he was ready to rent a warehouse space, and he needed to hire an employee.
Now you guys are friends at this point, right?
Right, we're friends. You know, he was tattooing me kind of regularly, and uh, we hung out a couple times. I know he came to Uncle Benny's house for WrestleMania once, and that's when I first met his wife Tina. Um, at the time, she was pregnant with Olivia, but then their next daughter is actually how we ended up getting the name for Alley Cat. But we'll come back to that. So Troy and I hang out occasionally.
But you hadn't helped him with the body jewelry yet?
I had not even been in his shop yet. We'd gone to they're big Steelers fans. They're from Pittsburgh area. I'd gone to Steelers fan club with him and his dad and his brother. And just to give you an idea, his dad would buy his little brother and myself pitchers of beer because we were too young to order them ourselves. And we'd be drinking in bars in public in Roanoke, just not ordering our own drinks. So Troy calls me up. He says, I need an employee, somebody I can trust, somebody I can count on. Why don't you quit your job, buy a more reliable car, and come work for me? And I said, okay, well, how much money am I going to make? And he said, how much money do you need to make? And like an idiot, instead of really putting any thought into it, I said, $400 a week? And he said, yeah, no problem. So I had an 81 Cadillac Coupe de Ville that belonged to Pop's dad, Freddie, that I paid $1,000 for, and I had about another $1,000 in, but it still wasn't tip top enough to ride to Roanoke every day. So with no cosigner, I went to a dealership, played outrageous amount of interest, and purchased a '96 Ford Focus.
The Focus, yes.
So at that point, I go to my employer, which at the time was AT&T, and I knew I wanted out of there anyway because when I started getting tattoos on my forearm, they started being real shady, and they just treated me different. I had a great performance record, a great attendance record, never been popped on a drug test, nothing funny like that. But I got a tattoo of Sacred Heart on my forearm, and they started treating me like I'm some kind of arch criminal. So I knew I wanted out of that shit anyway, and so Troy gave me an opportunity. So I took all my vacation at once, which happened to be most of the month of December.
This is still 97 we're talking about?
97.
Right, okay.
So I had I worked the first week of December, and then after that, all my vacation was the rest of that month. My official first day working for him was 98. January 1st, 1998, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I took all that time, and during the 3 weeks, I just said, fuck it. I went ahead, I went to Roanoke, and I worked out of his garage at Smith Mountain Lake, doing menial tasks, making jewelry.
Okay. So this is before the company itself was really formed, right?
Right, we didn't have a logo
Before
yet.
The company I would know of. All right.
We were taking orders. He and his wife were taking orders through their home phone. The catalog was a Xerox price list with no pictures whatsoever.
Okay. I would end up using that as reference later.
Yeah, for a huge, expensive catalog that went nowhere. So that was sort of my first foot into the tattoo industry as a whole. Now, obviously, I'm not tattooing. I'm not piercing at that point. I'm just making body jewelry, which I didn't really have much of an interest in, but I did have an interest in getting out of AT&T and I had an interest in getting into the tattoo industry, no matter how, no matter what it took. I wanted to do something that I could be free and look how the fuck I want to look and act how the fuck I want to act and do what I want to do.
But you're already meeting people too, right?
Yeah, well,
through hanging
Troy.
out with Troy.
I'm meeting guys like Mark, Bell, Andrew Connor, even on the road. Well, so once I start working for Troy, and he starts taking me around, we're going to Greensboro, we're going to Charlotte, we're going to all up and down, mainly in the South, but we're going through the Smoky Mountains. We're going down to Florida. We do a convention in Florida.
All shopping around the custom body jewelry that you guys were making.
Well, yeah, we're handmade, not necessarily custom. I mean,
Okay.
we're putting out thousands of the same thing. Captive Bead rings, barbells, things of that nature. But the first really really good dude I ever met in tattooing was Will Lolly, and Will Lolly had a booth next to us at a convention, at the Tampa convention, and I don't know, I guess that was like probably spring of '98. And by that point, I'm getting tattooed regularly. I had heard of Will Lolly. I had not seen many of his tattoos. I had never seen his face. Didn't know who he was. And I guess it's okay if I just sort of tell the story too. But Will's the first guy that I met that was super solid and sort of made you feel like if you're in this industry, you're part of something. And he treated us very, very well. We never met him. Set up a booth next to him. Started bullshitting. When we pulled into Tampa, we had already paid for our rooms via credit card. Between us, we had less than $10 in cash. I think we had maybe $8 and some change between us. And the first day of the convention, the first customer we sold 2 Captive Bead rings to was $40.
Okay.
Troy turns to me, he gives me the $40. He's like, "Go get 2 soft pretzels and 2 beers from the concession stand." And that's sort of how our weekend went, man. We sold some more stuff. I remember a dude bought some closing pliers to pull his own teeth from us that day, and I think he pulled one of them close by, not at our booth, but within a couple booths. And it was it was a wild weekend, man. It was really cool. Conventions were different back then, and it's funny because we had this nothing catalog out, this paper. We had put a few ads in magazines, and we had young people in the industry, my age and younger, asking to take photographs with us and shit. They didn't realize we were working out of a garage.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how it was.
That's how all the best things start.
Yeah. Well, Captive Bead ended up being the best thing, but it was a good thing for me. And it could have been the best thing, but things happen, whatever. But anyway, so that weekend, Will did pretty good. He was kind of a known guy at the time. He was doing kind of new school mixed with organic, kind of weird shit at the time. Stuff I'm sure he's not super stoked on now, but everyone at the time was super stoked on it. I remember that weekend he did a shamrock on the inside of a guy's bicep, and it was all textured and had a lot of like yellow highlights on it and shit. And I'd never seen a tattoo like that, so I thought it was fucking cool. But at the end of that weekend, he had done better than we did, and we were about to just hop in the car and hit the fucking road. And Will's like, "Hey, I want you guys to come to dinner with us." And we sat with him and his boss, who owned Hula Moon. I don't remember his name. I apologize. But they sat us down at their end of the table. There was probably 20 to 25 tattooers at that table. Everyone treated us super cool. I'm pretty sure Mike Wilson was there. I can't remember everybody, but Will and his boss, they fucking bought our meals. It was a nice restaurant. They had exotic food. I remember somebody close to us, it might have been Will's boss, ordered kangaroo.
Wow.
They bought our beers. Somebody had alligator close by. Everybody was sharing food. It was just a community feeling, and we didn't know any of these motherfuckers. And Will, we had just met, but they treated us really well. It was super fucking cool. But anyway, that's sort of getting off. That's a big sort of a sidetrack of the overall story. But I'm going up to Smith Mountain Lake, and I'm working at Troy's, and just working in his garage, basically sifting through rocks and polishing rings and polishing, working on a sort of a bench buffer and like a bench mounted buffer, and just making your basic body jewelry. And this goes on for a while, and then he's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna rent this warehouse space." So we moved from his garage to a warehouse.
The warehouse space that I would come to know.
Right.
Okay.
In Southeast Roanoke, right by the train tracks, there was hookers out there. There was a bar around the corner called Bucks and Does. And then it became the old 97. It's still there. What's it called now?
Now it's Chaps.
Chaps, yeah. Which,
yeah.
What a joint. Anyhow, yeah, I used to come out, work late nights, come outside, and there would be hookers just like sitting on my car, hanging out, what am I doing after work, and da-da-da-da. I give them a cigarette and tell them get the fuck out of my face. But yeah, so that warehouse, we hired and fired. Well, he hired and I fired people. He didn't want to pull the trigger on firing anybody, but I didn't give a fuck who it was because, he made a ton of fucking jewelry and he did all the custom shit, but I did a lot of the grunt work. And if you hired somebody, it was just to increase production. It was just to make the grunt work go better. Sometimes you get some jerk off and they didn't care. Or they were delicate and they want their fucking hands getting torn.
Did you fire the original graphic designer, or was he just kind of a?
No, I fired him.
Background associate. Okay.
Yeah, I fired him. He was a good friend of Troy's, and he swore, "Wait till Troy finds out about this." And I'm like, "Look, man, Troy's gonna fucking back me up because he told me to run this motherfucker." And I fired him because he was being a jerk off. He told me he wouldn't do what needed to be done. We were working late. He needed the extra money. He asked Troy for some hours. Troy gave him some hours, and he said, "Hey, my fingers hurt. I'm not doing that. Give me something else to do." And I said, "Well, that's what needs to be done." And he goes, "Well, my fucking fingers hurt, and I'm not doing it." I said, "Well, get your shit and get the fuck out of here. You're fired." And he said, "No, you can't fire me. Troy's not going to stand for this." I said, "I guess we'll see." And sure enough, an hour later, Troy calls me, "What the fuck did you fire TJ for?" I said, "He's being a big sissy," and that's that. And Troy said, "All right, well, I guess we'll have to find somebody else." A lot of people came in and out of Captive Bead.
Including myself. This is where I would also get to know Troy.
Adam, Tina.
But yeah, all of this leads to our story with Alley Cat, your story with Alley Cat Tattoo. So
because we work together now and have for 10 years, but we worked together very, very briefly.
We did.
And at Alley Cat.
Yeah, that would definitely be
at Captive Bead.
At Captive Bead, which I think that's the first time we've even mentioned the name of the company, a Captive Bead company.
Right.
Names will come up a lot. I think you were going to tell the story of Alley Cat's name, but these are all things that we can get back to later. So
right, yeah. Well,
so you're working for Troy. You're learning the ins and outs. You're having to fire people.
Yeah, I'm having to fire people. I'm having to show up at work. I'm supposed to be there at 9. I drop my stepson off at school, and I get there at 8:15, and Troy's there already saying, "Hey, I need you to go to Baltimore today, and then from there you need to go to Albany, and then you'll be back on Thursday evening." And I just got to tell my wife, "Hey, I got to go." I had to collect Troy's debts for him. People order stuff and they didn't pay or drop stuff off, and they didn't have the cash, and there's a lot of stories about me in and out of tattoo shops, and I met a lot of people that way. Made some friends, made some enemies.
Earning lots of experience, to say the least.
But absolutely, lots of life experience, lots of things.
Meeting a lot of people.
As these stories continue to unfold, we'll go back and we'll touch on experiences of dealing with people in tattoo shops, or people dealing with me in tattoo shops, and people on the road, and stuff that happens in hotels, and stuff that happens at titty bars, and stuff that happens at Red Lobster, and all these things are going to come and go. But so at some point, like I said, a lot of people came in and out of Captive Bead. Adam, who's one of my dearest friends, he came in and out. He's part of the owner of the company. And then, like you said, you came in, put together catalog, and shortly after that, I was actually laid off. You were hired, and I was kind of let go. During my time at Captain Bead and meeting all these people and experiencing all these things, I'm learning about jewelry, and I'm learning a lot about size, and I'm learning a lot just about the ins and outs of how these things work. And I meet a piercer who's a good friend of Troy at the time. His name's Scott. And Scott says, your knowledge of jewelry would be a great asset to you if you were ever interested in piercing. And, a lot of people in the tattoo business, they're heavily guarded about information and about people and who they trust and who they don't trust and who they're going to bring in and who they don't want to bring in. We were all very, very young.
In the late 90s.
Well, I mean, honestly, in the history of tattooing, and in Roanoke in particular, there's a lot of people that fucked other people over and opened across the street, and just it happened repeatedly. But we were a different sort of crowd. We were a circle of friends, and I came to that circle late. I came to that circle through Troy, but it was Troy, Scott, Mark Bell, Eddie Geary, Andy Connor, a handful of Barry Webster, Chris Sink. All these dudes were sort of part of a crew, part of a friendship, a circle of friends who a lot of them worked for Danny Fowler at Ancient Art, and we weren't quite as guarded. If you were in that crew, then you could get in. And Scott was nice enough to say, I know you do this, but here's an avenue for you to make more money, have a different line of work, I had to go for it because I didn't know at the time when he offered it to me, but Troy eventually laid me off. And if it hadn't been for that, then who knows what I would have done or where I would have found work. But I started hanging out with Scott, learning about anatomy, learning about sterilization, cross-contamination, all these different things. Learning how to glove and unglove. He was a particular guy. He was very, very intense about cross-contamination and making everything clean. So I'm spending time with him. He's coming over to the Section 8 housing project to let me pierce friends or coworkers and things like that. I'm following him to work. He was working at Painted Lady in Harrisonburg, and so I'm in there. I didn't really work for them. I wasn't really affiliated with them. I just came along with Troy and Scott, and we just sort of did our thing. So eventually my brother, Josh, you come on and you're working, and I get laid off. And so Alley Cat opens. Now, chronologically, I'm not sure where you got hired, I got laid off, and Alley Cat opened. But I know that I started to pierce in my apartment, Scott's apartment, doing a couple things. And it wasn't like we weren't necessarily doing piercing parties and I was just cut loose, but it was people that I knew, and I was under Scott's supervision, and it was, you can do a navel, you can do a tongue, you can do an earlobe, you can do a cartilage, things like that. So at one point, Alley Cat's open. I'm working 2 days a week there because Scott's the full-time piercer. So I'm working Sunday, Mondays in Harrisonburg.
Captive Bead is still open at this time.
Captive Bead's still open.
Okay.
You're employed there. It's you, Troy, Tina. No, Tina's gone by then, I think.
Maybe.
But Troy and Adam come and go. And then I think shortly after that, Adam goes to the beach.
My final duties working for a Captive Bead company were putting Bulldog tattoo together.
Right.
So that was later.
Yeah, Bulldog came later. So what I was going to say is I was working Sunday, Monday in Harrisonburg. Mark still had Urban Tribe at the time. So I would be working between Urban Tribe and Skin Thrills, which Mike, Grizz's place. So I was working Sunday, Monday in Harrisonburg. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday were just sort of up in the air. A couple days for Mark, a couple days for Grizz, whatever. Occasionally I would still do pickups or do inventory for Troy. Troy had a deal with Mark where he had inventory, and then he supplied his jewelry case, and then he would inventory it each week and pay for the difference, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, Bulldog opened. Urban Tribe closed. So I'm a couple days. I'm doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Bulldog in Blacksburg. I live in Roanoke. Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Bulldog. Sunday, Monday in Harrisonburg. And then Tuesday and Wednesday I did at Skin Thrills. And I did this because I didn't really have a job. A full-time job, and I needed to get in the industry. I needed to make money. I'm going through a divorce of my own. A Bulldog is not that fucking busy. If it was, I would have dropped one of those two so I could have some days off. You know what I mean? But Bulldog wasn't that busy. Everybody thought we're right across the street from Virginia Tech. It's going to be busy as fuck. Well, it's engineering school, and they weren't getting pierced and tattooed that fucking much. So, Scott and Troy have a falling out, which, maybe I'll tell that story at a later date. I'm not sure. But they have a falling out, and Troy's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I say, I'm going to step in, and I'm going to take over that position. And Troy's just like that. And I'm like, yeah, you got to figure, I'm not making any money. Troy had an interest in Bulldog as well. but the money was in Harrisonburg, not Blacksburg. So I said, you can figure out Blacksburg however you want it. I'm going to take Harrisonburg. I'm going to do it what I thought was going to be Tuesday through Saturday, which ended up being fucking 7 days a week for about 4 years.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have any other piercer. Eventually I brought on Adam, which was great, but he wasn't interested in working that fucking much. Adam's the type of person, just like his brother, they fucking, they make some money enough to pay their rent, and they don't give a fuck. They want to go fishing, they want to run around. That's fine, but, I just didn't want to do that. So, Alley Cat's doing his thing, and I'm still living in Roanoke. Andrew Connor comes back to Roanoke from L.A. He's working first. As a matter of fact, he recently tattooed me, and we were looking at an old tattoo he did 18 years ago. So he had the basement office of an audiologist in Roanoke. It wasn't. I guess it would have been northeast Roanoke. I'm not sure. Anyway, it wasn't too far from downtown. It was a basement. It was a really cool spot. I would go down there. Or no, I saw him. I wanted to get a tattoo by Joe Capobianca. And he goes, what are you going to get from him? And I said, a girl. He goes, I can do it, Joey, girl. I can do that. I said, okay. He said, come by my place tomorrow. So I go to his place. I got 240s. I got a couple joints. I roll to his place. It's super cool and super hip. He's got like a really cool couch that might be made from a car bumper or some shit. He's got, it just, all the colors are cool. There's like hula girl shit in there. And it just had like almost like a tropical feel. There was some seafoam green popping off, and just cool. And so we listened to Wayne Hancock records, and he tattooed me. Yeah, so he did this girl on me. Anyway, so I'm talking to him, and he had come up to Harrisonburg for Alley Cat's grand opening. And the first weekend we opened, it was myself, Scott, Dustin Golden, Troy, Andrew Connor, and Grizz. I'm pretty sure that was the team. Daniel Jones might have been around, but he wasn't tattooing at the time.
Dallas wasn't there yet?
Dallas was not there yet. Dallas, I think, showed up. New shop in town. He was kind of sweating it. Didn't know who we were, what we were doing. I'm pretty sure Troy had known Dallas briefly. Anyway, so Andrew and I had come up here for the grand opening. And then he had this private studio in Roanoke. And I think he and his girl at the time were talking about a house or, doing something, trying to get shit a little more serious. And he needed to show some sort of pay stub. And, he's doing taxes, but it's different when you have a check, blah, blah, blah. So he goes to work for Ancient Art, which he had worked for Ancient Art 10 years prior to that or something. He goes back to work for Ancient Art, and it's not really popping off for him. And him and his girl split, and I get a divorce with my old lady. And Scott and Troy had a falling out. So I go to Connor and I say, hey, man, let's say we get the fuck out of Roanoke. Let's go to Harrisonburg. Let's go make some money, man. It's cool up there. It's a whole new scene. We can make our own way. We'll do our thing. We'll go up there and make some money. And I said, I think he sat on it for a couple of days, and he was like, you know what, fuck it. And so we both just sort of let Roanoke go, and we moved up here. You took Chopper, my best friend in the world, and he was kidnapped. That's another story later.
So many stories.
Yeah, it's endless. And Andrew and I moved into Motel 6 on right on 33, across from Mr. J's Bagels, and we lived there for a couple of months.
That's really when the 7 days a week started, right?
That's when the 7 days a week started.
Okay.
And so it's him, Andrew, and Dustin tattooing, and I'm piercing. And Troy would come and tattoo a little bit. Grizz would tattoo a little bit. Grizz would send one of his guys from Skin Thrills, maybe Jason, maybe Daniel, maybe Cody, who knows. But the permanent situation was me, Andy, Dustin. But there was two of them, so they could take a day off each. But there was one of me. So I did 7 days a week. I did it for a long motherfucking time. So Andy and I were living in Motel 6 for like 2 months, and at first, it wasn't sweet at all. It just wasn't. Things were not sweet. We fucking weren't making a ton of money, but, we didn't have a kitchen, we didn't have no shit like that. So every day we got off work, honestly, Andy always wanted to better himself, always worked really hard. He didn't have distractions. I was just divorced, so I'm running after pussy. I'm wanting to catch a buzz. I want to eat good food. I'm running around town. I'm in a new town. Girls everywhere. Just all new experiences. So sometimes he'd go to dinner with me. Sometimes he'd go straight to the room. But every single night of the week, when I left Alley Cat, I would go to a different restaurant or bar. I'd always sit at the bar. I always tipped really well, and I always left the Alley Cat tattoo card with my tip. Like when I paid the bill, I left the Alley Cat tattoo card there. And then the following week, they'd see me again. Oh, you were at the new tattoo shop. And that's how I sort of started to build up a rapport with the community and just sort of get people interested in tattoos, man. And, you know, because we bombed JMU with flyers to the point that the dean at JMU wrote us a letter saying he will prosecute us, he will fine us if he sees one more flyer on a bulletin board. I mean, we did it every single building, every single bulletin board, 2 Alley Cat tattoo.
I remember spending all-nighters printing flyers and banners and stickers and everything.
Exactly. It had to be done.
Definitely.
But that's how we got the word out. So a couple weeks not making much money at all. Fast forward 2.5 months later, and we're big shit. You know, me and Andy, we probably got $2,000 a piece. We're fucking, and I'd never seen that kind of money before, but Andy had. And Andy's like, go get us a house. And I'm like, what do you mean go get us a house? He's like, go get us a fucking house, man. Find us a house. And I was like, what do you want to, what do you mean? What's it got to have? He's like, I don't care. It's got to have a place where we can shit, a place where we can eat, a place where we can sleep. And that's about what I found. I found a fucking dump right up the street from the shop.
But it wasn't a motel.
But it wasn't a motel. It was not a motel. I could get my shit out of your garage. I could get my dog, which is the most important thing in the world to me at the time. And so me and Chopper and Andy, we moved in right up the street on Reservoir. I'll never forget, I saw the house in the newspaper. So this is 2002. So I saw the fucking thing in the newspaper because in 2002, I'd never used the internet in my fucking life. I didn't have a cell phone. And, you know, there was no Craigslist, none of that bullshit.
You're still years away from writing your first check.
Yeah, still many years away from writing the first check. I see it in the newspaper, and it's like $600 a month, 3-bedroom, and blah, 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 blah. And I go, hey, Andy, what about this house? And he goes, we'll take it. And I go, well, we haven't seen it yet, man. He goes, it's on this street? And I go, yeah. He goes, we'll take it. And I said, well, they're going to ask for, you know, X amount of dollars. And he's like, okay. So it was $600 a month. Of course, they needed a first month rent as a deposit. So he peeled off $600. He asked, he said, Nick, you got $600? I said, yeah. He peeled off $600. He said, go get the house. I said, right, you just go, you don't want to see the house? He's like, no. I got a tattoo to do. Go get the fucking house. So I go up there. I meet the old man who owns the place, Carl Landis. He's the coolest motherfucker. I still see him. Him and his brothers grew up in the house. Now they're all businessmen. And I meet him in there, and I look around, and I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at, really. I'm like, okay, well, I'll take it. He's like, no, wait a minute. Are you sure you want this place? And I was like, yeah, I want the place. And I go, so what's it going to cost us to get in here? He says, $1,200. I pull out $1,200 in my pocket, peel it off to him, and he goes, now, wait a minute now, boy. Where'd you get this money? And I said, what? And he goes, did you rob a bank? I said, fuck the hell no, I didn't rob a bank, Carl. I said, I worked at a tattoo shop right down the street. So I worked for the money. I said, half mine, it's half Andrew's. He's like, now you should taking such large amounts of cash. I said, well, you want to rent the house or you don't want to rent the house? He said, it's yours, boy. Sign right here. So I signed it, and, you know, Andy and I moved in over the next couple of weeks. I remember coming to your house, pulling up in the alley, loading that motherfucker down, getting Chopper, put Chopper in the passenger seat. It wasn't a U-Haul. I believe it was a Penske, the biggest one they had, the one you can actually drive. You know, the truck. I knew a guy through Troy I met up here who got me a deal. All I had to pay was the insurance. So it was like $45, and I got the biggest fucking truck they had. Never driven a vehicle that big in my life. Put Chopper in the passenger seat, and me and Chopper, we cruised to Harrisonburg, unloaded our shit, and that was that, man. And so, you know, like I said, at this point, this is like, I know, so Alley Cat opened September 1st, 2001. That was the worst Christmas of my life. Me and my wife hated each other, couldn't get along at all. And I remember she was gone, completely gone by February.
Yeah. Wow.
And so we must have moved into that house around 1st of May, which was stupid because that's when the students were getting ready to leave and the business was going to go, and then we weren't making any money for the summer. But we had to do something. And I would still occasionally go pick up shifts, and of course we worked Adam into the schedule and things like that. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the, you know, and then from there, Dallas came on at Alley Cat. We brought Jen up originally to Pierce before. So Adam actually wasn't on. We brought Jen up, and Jen was piercing, and I was piercing. So that finally gave me some fucking time off. But she wanted to tattoo. So eventually she's tattooing. Andy is apprenticing her. And then Adam comes on. So Adam's piercing, I'm piercing. He didn't want to work that much. I'm trying to give him more days so I can have 3 or 4 days off. But yeah, so it's me, Adam, Jen, Dustin, Andy, and Dallas. I think that was the team at the time.
So Alley Cat Tattoo is up and rolling. We've got a cast of original characters, and what we'll come to find out eventually, you, the only one who has been here the entire time.
Yes, I'm the only one that's been here the whole. We just had our 15-year anniversary.
15-year anniversary for Alley Cat Tattoo.
Yeah.
Now, but let's go back. So, you said there was a story about how it got its name. I don't think I remember that story myself, and here I am, part of it now. Let's go back to that.
Okay.
I want to hear that.
Before I tell you the story about the name, just based on what you just said, yeah, Captive Bead Company is sort of on its way out, and Alley Cat is starting to kick. But I just want to say, like, the Captive Bead Company years.
Oh yeah.
Some of the best fucking years of my life.
And a wealth of stories, a wealth of
stories, and we'll go into a ton of it.
Yeah.
A lot of road stories, a lot of fun shit. But Troy and Adam and I were super fucking tight, and we saw a lot of fucking amazing punk rock shows together and honky tonk shows together, and we traveled all over the fucking country. And I don't want to just gloss over any of that. There'll be time we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep telling stories, and I'm gonna tell some of the stories of some of the literally the best times of my life spent with these guys doing this thing, traveling the country, seeing amazing punk rock and honky tonk shows, and just fucking being early 20s kid just running all over the place. Lots of fun.
And we might even figure out why the hell I'm even here.
We'll get to that too. But so
let's hear this Alley Cat story.
So to the name. So with that being said, our families are spending a lot of time together. I know Troy and Adam's parents. Obviously, they're brothers. I don't know if I mentioned that. I know their parents really well. I know their children well. They know our parents. They're going to our parents' houses, things like that. It's all overlapping. When I met Troy and Tina was pregnant with their daughter Olivia, and so years later, it's about time to open a tattoo shop. Tina is pregnant again, and I think what I said was, this is how Alley Cat got its name. But that's not entirely true. The fact is, it's how Alyssa Catherine got her name.
Oh, okay. I know that
story. So you know that story, yeah.
I see.
So Troy is from the old school. He worked for Danny Fowler. And the idea was, you name your tattoo something that starts with an A,
to be first in the phone book.
So that you'd be first in the phone book, exactly. Which is the funny thing about that is, again, when I was traveling all over the country, there was no cell phones at the time. There were, but we didn't fucking have them. So we would go to cities, whether it be Philadelphia, whether it be Savannah, Georgia, New Orleans.
You're hitting up a phone booth.
We're hitting a phone booth. We're ripping out the tattoo page, and they'll be like AAA tattoo, AA tattoo, Al's. People go to great lengths to get first in the phone book. Well, in Harrisonburg, at the time, I think there was 2 tattoo shops, and neither one of them had gone by that rule. I think it was TJ's, who everyone knows is a tattoo legend, and he's written books on the subject.
No air quotes there.
I mean, he's written books. Really, he has. You
can
go to Barnes and Noble, buy his fucking. I think Barnes and Noble. I know Josh Brown has a copy of his book, and I think Dave does too. But so his was TJ Dermographics, super sweet name, and then there was the Painted Lady. So Troy wanted to be first in the phone book, obviously, so it's Alley Cat Tattoo. Now, I think he got that, I'm pretty sure it was inspired by a sheet of Tony Savaro flash. Okay, so
that would make sense.
Right, Tony was putting out a fucking ton of flash at the time. It was very new school, very bubbly, not the best shit ever, but we thought it was cool. Some of us thought it was cool. And so I think he saw a sheet of flash. He ended up meeting Tony Savaro. I think he got a tattoo of a cat with crossbones on his elbow. And then at some point later, he decided, you know what, I'm going to name the shop Alley Cat Tattoo, and I'm going to get Tony Savaro to do a logo. He ended up doing our original logo. He'd never been in the building. He never tattooed here, but Troy was friendly with him and so on and so forth. And then Tina's pregnant around the same time, so then they decide, we're going to name our little girl after the tattoo shop.
Yes.
Alley Cat Tattoo. Her name is Alyssa Catherine. She's a sweet little girl.
Do they call her Allie these days?
I'm not sure. I think they call her Alyssa. I think they've always called her Alyssa, to be quite honest.
Okay.
But so I guess she would be probably about about 15 by now. Something like that. I know she came a little bit after the tattoo shop. But yeah, she would be about 15. So, so that's not really how Alley Cat got it. I mean, it's kind of how Alley Cat got his name, but more so it's how Alyssa got her name. So, yeah. What?
All right, so Troy has named his daughter after the shop and sticks around for a few more years, but
Right.
it is now our shop. So how did this come about? This was Troy and Grizz owned Alley Cat Tattoo.
Troy and Grizz opened Alley Cat Tattoo 2001. We're just before 9/11. Crazy. Which, like I said, we just had an anniversary. People, I saw the other day some shit on Facebook where people were like, where were you when 9/11 happened? And I remember being in the warehouse at Captive Bead Company in Roanoke, and our neighbor running in and say, hey, there was an accident. A plane hit the Twin Towers. And then he come running back over about 5 minutes later and said, no, it wasn't an accident. It's a terrorist act. And that I was coming up here to deliver some jewelry for Troy and come to work.
To Alley Cat, yeah.
And I remember him saying, look, you got to go. So I put my shit in the car, and I got on the interstate, and there was just fucking nobody on the interstate. And I'm listening to it on the radio, which is a weird way to hear something like that. And I know it sounds weird, but I remember coming to the interstate and there hardly being anybody on the road at all, and being kind of freaked out, and just thinking to myself, is it gonna be like some Red Dawn shit? Am I gonna start seeing like people falling out of the sky, like fucking, I mean, you laugh,
yeah.
but I mean, I thought, we're under attack here. We're under attack. Am I going to start seeing fucking planes with parachutes just dropping out like fucking Russians or whoever? We didn't know.
Of course, we grew up in the 80s, all the movies about the end of the Cold War.
Exactly. So that's what I'm thinking the whole way. But anyhow,
Sure.
that's not the subject of this discussion. Anyway, so Troy and Grizz, they have the business for about 5 years. In that 5 years, or sometime prior to that, our pop had been injured on the railroad. He's going to get some settlement money. He's trying to figure out what he's going to do with that money. So he and I said, Pop, Troy and Grizz, they've been talking about getting rid of the shop, but they want to sell it.
Neither of them had ever moved to Harrisonburg, I think was
right. I was managing the shop.
What triggered everything.
Exactly. I was managing the shop for them. They would come up here separately, randomly, and one of them would go, well, where's the $4,000 that was here? And the other one would go, well, what's this bill for this? And, they didn't communicate very well. I sort of had more of an allegiance to Troy, although I respected Grizz and I liked Grizz. Troy brought me in, and then Dustin, Grizz's son, he sort of had allegiance to his dad. So stories were probably not lining up, and the money wasn't always there. It wasn't anybody who was stealing money, but, one of them would spend money and on the other one, and, we need this fixed, and the other one would focus on this thing. So they weren't sort of lined up on exactly the goings on. They weren't communicating properly. Yeah, they both had other businesses.
And you can't just hop in your car and travel right up to Harrisonburg from Roanoke. It's a couple hours, and
then it's all about who's here and what's going on. Yeah. It's complicated. So anyway, they didn't always see eye to eye, and they're thinking about dissolving their partnership, but one of them didn't want to sell it to the other because I guess they went in together. They decided, hey, if we sell it, we'll sell the whole thing.
It makes sense.
Sure.
Considering the dynamics of their relationship.
Right.
You wouldn't want one to do better without the other because that would
look bad. Right, and then there would be turmoil, animosity, whatever. So
anyway,
I'm managing the joint. Grizz and I are good friends. Troy and I are super tight. They decide they're going to offer it to me. I go to Pop.
This is 5 years later, I believe. This is 2006.
Right, it's 2006.
Yeah.
And I go to Pop, and this is early 2006.
Yeah.
And so I go to Pop, and I'm like, hey, man, you need to do something when you get your dough. This is an opportunity. You put up the money, I'll do the work, and, you'll get paid. You'll get a check until you're paid off, and then we'll figure out our partnership situation. He's like, yeah, let's do this. This goes on a couple months. Gonna go meet a bank in Roanoke. Gonna go pick up Pop. Gonna drive to Roanoke. Gonna meet a bank. Gonna borrow some money. But we're gonna use some of Pop's money as a down payment, sort of. We're gonna figure this out.
And I don't know any of this is happening. I'm living my life.
At the time, well, Josh and I
were talking every couple of weeks, maybe.
Yeah, we talk once a month, perhaps. We've always been cool, but we haven't always been close. We were close when we were real young. We kind of went in different directions as teenagers. You went off to Germany. I'm back home. I'm a fucking stone cold gangster.
Now we had worked together
at Captive Bead.
Yeah.
Like we had a profound respect for one another, and we were friends. We loved one another. We lived close together in Southeast, but we weren't talking every day. We were talking occasionally. Hey, you going to mom's for this thing, that thing, whatever. So you weren't privy to that.
But I know nothing about this deal with Tony.
Right.
And you. So anyway.
Right. So
that's you're trying to get that done.
I'm trying to get that hammered out. We're supposed to go see a bank. I think on a Monday. I call Pop on Sunday. I'm in the sterilization room in Alley Cat.
Yep.
Pop, we have an appointment in Roanoke at 11. I'm gonna pick you up at 9. I'll be at your house at 9. Well, he just kind of, I don't know, boy. I just, I've been thinking, and I've been talking to Dan, and Dan don't think this is a good idea. So Dan is like his financial advisor. Dan doesn't think it's a good idea. And I said, well, Dan doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. The thing about it is, Nick, if it was such a good thing, then Troy wouldn't be getting out of it. And I said, well, Troy don't know what the fuck he's doing either. These motherfuckers he's walking away from a fucking pile of money. And, Dan doesn't know shit about the tattoo industry. He's Merrill Lynch, and that's cool. And I was just sort of pleading with that. I was feeling it slipping away, and I was feeling desperate, He just basically says it ain't fucking happening. So I hang up the phone and I fucking put my fucking face in my hand. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm mad. I'm just fucking pissed off. And I call you.
You call me.
And I just start unloading. I'm just bitching. I'm like, yo, this motherfucker said he was going to help me and I was going to help him. And he doesn't know, blah, 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 blah. I go into this thing about how Alley Cat is the shit. And I've worked really hard to get a reputation. And we're starting, we're busy and we're putting out dope tattoos and boom, 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 boom. It's going really well. And he doesn't know, and he's taking advice from somebody else who doesn't know, and I'm fucking pissed off and I'm frustrated and I don't know what to fucking do.
And so I'm listening, and I don't say a whole lot, which is normal. But
yeah, right. Well, just like this, just like right now.
I'm learning about. The main thing I learned in that phone call is Troy and Grizz want to sell the shop, which was
not only was me and Tony going to go into it new.
It was kind of a secret.
But that's new.
Yeah,
that information is new to you at the time.
And so I'm hearing this, and
I remember exactly what you said to me.
Well, I said I would call you back. I think the first thing I did.
You said, you know what? Beerton and I have been trying to figure out how to invest our money. So let me call you back.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? You're like, I'll call you back.
I didn't really explain what else meant by that.
No. And I didn't know.
But I called you back pretty quick, I think.
About 30 minutes.
It was about 30 minutes.
About 30. And again, I'm at work at Alley Cat. And this is, again, like in those days, I didn't have an office. I didn't have the space I have now. I had the piercing station, but anybody could hear me running my mouth. So my go-to was I'd go in the sterilization room and I'd make phone calls and I'd talk shit. And there was nobody up. All the tattooers were in the back of the shop. 30 minutes later, I get this phone call and I'm like, hello? And you said, yeah, let's do it. And I said, do what? What do you want to do? And you said, well, like I said, Beard and I have been wanting to figure out a way to invest our money. And I know you run it, and I know you know the ins and outs of it. So, we got a little bit of equity in our house. Let's get a loan.
The key was that I had already worked for Troy for a while and knew some ins and outs of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if this applies at all, but what I want to say is you're not supposed to. Nah, that doesn't really apply. I was just saying you're not supposed to look a gift horse in the mouth. He will stare one down the fucking throat. Troy has a short attention span, and so if something is not exciting and thrilling and new and something that needs a lot of work, he's not as interested. And the wheels were greased here, and we were doing it. It wouldn't require much effort from him at all. All he really had to do was collect a paycheck, which was working for him, but he wanted more all the time.
Yeah.
At Alley Cat, he had a situation in Blacksburg. Then he decided, I'm going to sell Alley Cat. I'm going to start a farm. I'm going to buy this farm. I'm going to put a house on it for my brother, a house on it for my mom and dad. I want out. I'm out.
So I say, let me find the money. You be the manager. We become partners.
Right. So, yeah, that was the beginning of business venture, business relationship. My name's Nick.
Josh.
And, so we basically, this is our first attempt at sort of telling our story and sort of a podcast type idea. I've got some friends. They know I'm a bullshitter. I fucking run my mouth a lot. And they're like, you tell good stories and you talk a lot of shit, and it would be fun to listen to. It would be fun as a podcast. So this is our very first attempt at trying to get some of these stories down.
Yeah.
And, it'll probably go a ton of directions, but we thought that might be a good center point to put into perspective where we are now, a brief history of where we came from, and, I've got a fucking pile of stories and lots of fun times, and so, I hope you like it.
Excellent.
All right.